Welcome to the Kevin Barrett Show here on NoLiesRadio.org, where week after week I keep bringing you fine guests, among the very best in the entire world. I scour the whole world, northern and southern hemisphere, eastern and western hemisphere for the very finest. And boy, have I ever scoured one up tonight. I'm going to be bringing on the ultimate conspiracy comedian. That's right. In a world chock full of conspiracy and comedy, don't lose your sense of humor or you'll go friggin' nuts. That's right. It's Vincent Eastwood, a.k.a. Vinny. And Vinny Eastwood. He called himself Vincent at one point, or somebody called him Vincent. I don't know. Anyway, whatever you call him, he's one of the finest voices in alternative media. And he's one of the rare people in the truth movement who actually is funnier than I am, which I suppose isn't saying all that much. But let's hear it from the horse's mouth. Welcome, Vinny Eastwood. How you doing?
Somewhat fabulous now that I'm here.
Yes, indeed. So is it like 4 a.m. where you are or something?
Nah, it's midday.
Oh, geez. Okay. Sorry about that. I was intending to wake you up at 4 a.m.
Well, when I first started on AmericanFreedomRadio.com, it was 3 till 5 a.m., 5 days a week.
You got the best slot.
Yeah, or something that rhymes with slot.
Well, no, seriously, Vinny, you know that the ultimate slot for our kind of radio is, what those guys, what's that, these conspiracy shows out in Nevada, I can't remember their names, but there are these famous guys who get huge audiences because they have this horrible late night slot in the middle of nowhere. So actually, when you were given the 3 a.m. slot, that was probably a gesture to your superiority.
If you say so.
Yeah. So seriously, what's it like fighting the New World Order from New Zealand?
Well, to tell you the truth, Kevin, it sometimes feels like I'm the lone voice in the middle of the wilderness going, "Frack Monsanto! I hate you!" What were we doing? This big march against Monsanto protests that we had. I think it was like 280 cities or something worldwide over the weekend.
Right.
When I go to protests, I film all the speakers speaking, usually get up and speak myself as well, and then join in the protests and carry around the megaphones and things of that nature. This time, because it was raining here in Auckland during the Monsanto protest, I filmed all the speakers, and then they were like, okay, well, it's time to go home. And there were like 300-400 people there who came to march, and They came up and asked me, Vinny, will you lead us?
Oh no!
And so naturally, being who I am, I look at it this way. I can't refuse an opportunity to rant stuff over a megaphone. It's something that I find intensely enjoyable. And incidentally, when you tell jokes through a megaphone, they become funnier. Like, funnier than the joke by itself. Have you ever noticed that?
Well, my jokes only get louder.
Yeah.
I tried this once.
I don't know what it is about.
Ear-splitting laughter was not forthcoming.
Yeah. So anyway, we what was the thing? I go, all right, here goes the chant. I say Monsanto, you say you suck, bro. Monsanto, you suck, bro. It was fun, man. And what I found interesting about this crowd is that I have never, I don't know if you've seen this before in your illustrious long protesting career, Kevin, but I have never seen a protest organised worldwide against a single company.
Yeah, Monsanto must be doing something right from their perspective to make everyone hate them that much.
And on top of that, this crowd was the loudest crowd I have ever seen in my life. I must have been to hundreds of protests, and this smaller, by comparison, protest was far, far louder and more vocal than all of the other ones that I've been on. And I think that's just true testament to what a bunch of criminal sociopathic scum the Monsanto Corporation really are.
I think you're right. I think they've stepped off into a whole new level of malevolence. And it's also, I think, that people don't appreciate it when you mess with their food supply. It's one thing to go and blow up buildings far away on TV and shoot presidents and things like that. But if you actually start putting toxic high-tech poisons in people's food, then they may start objecting.
Especially if you try to conceal it from them.
Right, right. Yeah, isn't that amazing the way they've tried to prevent labeling? They've gone and lobbied for laws to prevent anybody putting a label on their natural organic product saying no GMOs. I mean, how crazy is that?
Well, isn't it easy? You only need to invest a couple of $1 million in bribing U.S. Congress. Campaign contributions to U.S. Congress. What's the freaking difference between bribe and campaign contribution? You gotta be kidding me.
Well, I actually was seriously proposing that when I was running for Congress. I mean, that wasn't even a joke. I was saying, look, let's have a law that any handing an office holder more than $200 is a presumptive bribe, just like, having more than a pound of marijuana, you're presumptively dealing, which I'm not saying anything's wrong with that, but there is something wrong with bribing government officials. So, I mean, this just seems to me pretty obvious. I don't even know why I would even need to propose such a law. They should just already be arresting people who take $200 or more, but for whatever reason, they're not.
Well, I know you come up with an interesting point there. I don't know why we should need to be protesting about Monsanto either, and yet we have to. I don't know why we should be having to inform people that 9/11 was an inside job. I mean, it's just so freaking obvious. Have you noticed that the things that are logical and the things that are obvious are the things that have become cryptic and misunderstood by the vast majority of the public, and the people who aren't complete brainwashed morons, like ourselves, are sitting here bewildered at just how much effort it takes to inform people of things that should be so obvious that they should know it already.
Absolutely right. We're coming up to the 50-year anniversary of the JFK assassination, and there's this whole discourse of the supposedly open-minded people who say, well, I suppose we'll never really know whether or not it was a conspiracy. Well, wait a minute, guys. I mean, Jack Ruby was a mob hitman, enforcer, a gun runner. He was the liaison between the intelligence community, the Dallas police, and the mafia. He was pimping to the Dallas Police Department and everybody else. Right. I mean, I don't think there's ever been anybody in history who was more obviously mobbed up than Ruby. And if there was, I kind of feel sorry for them. But so this guy, Ruby, waltzes in to the Dallas Police Department basement with there's no security. Nobody even looks at him twice. The cops all step aside. He draws his gun as he walks through a crowd of police officers they all step aside. Ruby draws his gun, walks right up to Oswald. Boom. Takes out the guy who supposedly assassinated the president. Does it really get any more obvious than that? How long are we going to have to wait before we decide whether or not this was a conspiracy? I mean, come on.
Yeah. Well, in the most recent edition of Uncensored magazine, they've claimed to identify the Kennedy shooter. And what I find very strange about these types of discussions is when we're talking about a conspiracy that is obvious to anyone with a brain that it's a conspiracy, it's just the whole proving something in court scenario. You need masses of evidence that is incontrovertible, beyond no hearsay, well documented, etc., in order to get a conviction. Right? This is how the legal system works. I think that conspirators over this time period have developed such efficient methodologies for covering up specific criminal activity that precludes any evidence from existing in getting any conviction in a court. Don't you think?
Absolutely. Well, that's why they take out the witnesses. They don't usually take out people like you and me. We're just journalists, and we're conspiracy theorists, and people who just blab and talk and post things on the internet and write books. They don't usually come after people like us. But guess what? If you have some evidence that's going to convict somebody of one of these capital crimes, you better run for cover. You better get all your evidence out there, signed, sealed, and delivered, and make sure it's out and available, and a million people have it.
Yeah,
Otherwise, you're toast.
well, that's right. I mean, I've spoken to a number of people who are involved in conspiracies here in New Zealand, and they've approached me and said, I want to release this information. Then I go, okay, well, here's a schedule, here's a time slot. Let's get you on air and talk about all this information. And then they go, oh, but if I release this, they'll kill me. And just like, no, you frickin' idiot. If you don't release it, they'll kill you.
Right. Remember the DC madam, Deborah Jean Palfrey, she had this evidence that was going to nail Dick Cheney and all of these top movers and shakers, but she wasn't going to reveal it yet. Next thing you know, she's hanged.
I mean, duh. What do you expect? Once the cat's out of the bag, why would somebody try and burn the bag?
There you go. Yeah. So anybody listening to this show who has evidence that will convict Dick Cheney or any of the surviving JFK conspirators, who are probably all 100 years old by now, or any other major crime, please spam it out there to as many people as possible. Get every last bit of evidence, everything you know, out into the public domain, and then take a deep breath and relax.
Yeah, exactly. I've exposed that 9/11 was an inside job and Dick Cheney and Rumsfeld did it. You know?
Doesn't that feel good to say that?
Yeah.
All right. So speaking of getting back to Monsanto, our favorite corporation, did you hear about the wonderful outcome? Well, semi-wonderful outcome here in Wisconsin. We had Vernon Hirschberger, a dairy farmer who was being charged with the crime of selling raw milk straight to consumers.
You mean somebody operating a private business selling his own products that he manufactures himself to people who are willingly able to give across their money in order to obtain said product? Hey, what an evil person. This person needs to be exterminated and excommunicated from the business community.
Well, he was using normal, natural, organic, non-GMO cows to produce that milk, and then he wasn't cooking the milk. He was just selling it the way it came out of the cow. I mean, that's pretty bad, I guess.
Well, I don't know about you, but my sister works on her boyfriend has a farm, and normally when I drink milk, I get this really bad phlegm kind of problem. It's homogenized, it's pasteurized. Even the organic stuff that you buy, I can't really drink it, or that much of it anyway. I don't have milk in my coffee as a direct result of this.
When you do, your radio sounds like this. Right? I think I heard one of those shows.
Yeah, you're actually right. And sometimes the muting of the microphone doesn't happen fast enough, and you can just imagine the poor listeners on the other end of the thing going, "Oh my God, that's disgusting! I need to go purchase a hanky." And what I found was drinking this raw milk. Not only there's a massive difference in flavor. Because there's all this extra really good cream on it, like this thin film of cream over the top of the coffee. Not only did it taste really good, but it didn't have any of those phlegm reactions either. And I thought that was particularly interesting, considering how frickin' impossible, unless you know the farmer and can go to his farm, grab the milk off him, you can't get raw milk, like for love or money.
That's right. Well, here in western Wisconsin, there are a few people like Vernon Hirschberger producing the raw milk. We actually were members of his, actually we are now still members of his club. He lives a ways away from us, so we don't get out there all that often. But anyway, he won his case he won 3 out of 4 counts. They only convicted him of one very minor count of refusing to obey the order of the food Gestapo, that after they raided his farm, put crime scene tape around his barn, taped shut all of his coolers, threw dye in his milk, said, "Don't ever open these coolers again, or you're going to jail." Well, guess what? He actually opened a couple of his coolers. So they charged him with disobeying a government order or something like that. And he got convicted on that one. But being acquitted on all the other counts means that the government never should have given that order in the first place. So we're still waiting for sentencing. But he's probably going to get a pretty light sentence given the overall circumstances. And so we have to look at this as something of a victory for the food movement, the raw milk movement, the natural, safe, organic food movement, and the freedom movement, of course, because after all, if raw milk is illegal, I mean, what isn't?
Well, it reminds me of what Sheriff Richard Mack told me, is that he had an Amish farmer selling raw milk to people, and I think he was Amish. It might have been. I can't recall exactly. But anyway, this person rang up the local sheriff and said, "Sheriff, I need you to protect me from the government." All right. And this is the crazy thing that's happening in America nowadays, and I'm just wondering, as a patriot, how long does it take before your own faith in your own country and your own people starts to wane? Because I've met too many people, Kevin, who have started off being patriotic, caring about their country, caring about their people, being active, and then suddenly, for some reason or another, they lose their motivation and they stop caring. Why is that?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess people do start to burn out sometimes. Everybody has their threshold, and there are a lot of cynics around. Like when I was getting chased by the state legislature for doing research about 9/11. Suddenly, this whole story was blowing up in the headlines, and the Capital Times newspaper sent out a reporter to interview people on the streets of Madison, Wisconsin, to find out what they thought about this case. So they were shocked. The reporter told me that he was shocked to find out that most of the people that he talked to, he said, "Oh, well, this professor, he thinks that 9/11 was an inside job. What do you think about that?" He said that the most common reaction was, "That wouldn't surprise me." And he couldn't believe it because he was, one of these, a newspaper reporter. So he just believes the stuff that's in the newspaper, I guess. And he was kind of shocked at how so many cynical people out there on the street don't believe the stuff that's in the newspaper. But I guess they're not doing much about it because they're cynical.
Yeah. Suffering from a bit of a lack of faith in themselves, suffering from a lack of personal responsibility. I mean, when I started going out and being an activist, it was because I was listening to Alex Jones for like 3 hours a day, then listening to the rebroadcast and watching all these documentaries and all of that kind of stuff.
You had a heavy-duty Alex habit.
I did. I was. I would have done it intravenously if I could have. And the thing that occurred to me is, hold on a second. I'm in New Zealand, he's in the United States. All the stuff that he's making sense, all the stuff that he's saying is making sense, and it's all happening here. Yet, there's nobody in this country, nobody, doing anything comparable or even anything similar to what he was doing.
And much less anything better, which you're doing now, Vinny.
If you say so. And the element was just simply, I can't sit back and do nothing. And this guy's started up this business model of alternative media. He's taking donations, he's selling products, he's doing broadcasting, he's expanding, so on and so forth. If that business model can work in America, then certainly it could work anywhere else. So that's what I started to do. Just went out, going to protest, public meetings, things like that, and it just became, instead of being about me, Vinny Eastwood, going out there and doing all the work and that needs to be done, yada yada yada, it actually became more about all these people who were doing all the speaking, all these people who were doing all the activism, who knew what they were talking about far more than I did, and simply going up and asking them questions and listening to what they're saying. And before I knew it, I was starting to gain this really, this intensely informed perspective, because I was listening to people on both sides of every argument. Like there'll be one person saying Monsanto's evil because they made Agent Orange and nuclear weapons and are doing genetically modified food, which is the tumors on rats. And then I listen to the other side too, that says, no, I'm not listening. and you gain the perspective of, one person's retarded and one person knows what they're talking about, and there is no fracking argument here, is there? And that's what it is with most things I've found. Like I'll listen to these two guys and they're arguing about politics. One of them's voting for a centre right party and one of them's voting for a far right party, both of which are completely bought off and corrupt and frickin' stupid, who are consistently destroying this country and taking away people's rights and taking away business opportunities from everybody, which is the direct opposite that a right-wing party is supposed to do. And I inject myself into the conversation and start asking them what they really think about things, and start offering my perspective, and they literally freeze up and fucking walk away. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to swear, but
there goes the FCC buzz light. The red light just went on. You owe $10.
yeah, John Spartan, that is a $10 fine for a breach of the verbal morality standard.
That's right. I mean, are you guys allowed to swear on the air over in New Zealand?
We are actually. We have a broadcasting standards authority, and you're allowed to swear over the radio. Like even George FM, which is kind of like a dance music radio channel. It's kind of the only one that I really listen to if I can when we're driving around. And they'll be playing songs and at 6 o'clock at night they have the F word as every fifth or sixth word, This is publicly broadcasted.
We have to wait till 10 at night.
Yeah. Well, they ain't even been shut down. And here's the thing: what time of the night does it have to be before suddenly FCC regulations don't apply anymore? Oh, you can only express yourself properly when children are all asleep. And more to the point, how can you prove that all the children are asleep? Maybe they're hyped up on caffeine and Mountain Dew like Honey Boo Boo and sitting there dribbling in some kind of a wheelchair at a retirement home, pulling donuts in the parking lot while they're listening to the radio and then hearing all these swear words.
Hearing one or two four-letter words isn't going to kill them.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. People have become really uptight about language, I think, to a large degree. And I've had to curb my natural speaking style, which often does involve a fair amount of cussing, just in my general to daily life, because when I broadcast, I'm usually on FCC regulated radio, on American Freedom Radio, and I'm just
plug, by the way. Yeah, American Freedom Radio. Yeah.
And speaking of American Freedom Radio, and speaking of censorship, had this dude Bruce Montalvo, who's in there with Pete Santilli, and on the Guerrilla Media Network, which they stole the name from me, and he releases this article defaming the network. Defaming the owner of the network, our good mutual friend Danny Romero, saying that he was dishonorably discharged, which is a lie, that he killed a girl in a car crash in 1987, which is a lie, that he's a white supremacist, which is a lie, that he has white supremacists on the network, which is another lie, and it's just one lie leading to another, leading to another, leading to another. It's just like this guy's practically pulling a Rockefeller on us.
Pete Santilli seems to be a little mentally disturbed. I mean, I hope he's recovered by now, but he was giving death threats to Jim Fetzer. He might even have given me a death threat at one point.
He does this. He does this regularly, Kevin. You do searches on Google for anything Santilli related, and you will pull up heaps and heaps and heaps of people complaining about him and publishing the emails that he sent him. He threatened to beat to death a wheelchair-bound veteran. Right? He says,
I missed that.
He says, "I will beat you to death in your wheelchair." Okay, on an email. Just
wow, what a brave guy.
Well, people think he's psychotic, and I really don't want to talk about it, because I believe personally he's a very dangerous person, and he's done horrible things. Horrible things. You should see what he's done to Suzanne Posel of OccupyCorporatism.com. Their website got hacked, and they traced back the IP addresses of who hacked it back to Pete Santilli. They started up a website called SuzannePosel.com and started publishing all these defamatory lies about her and all of that kind of stuff, sending her abusive emails, using the "see you next Tuesday" word, which he was calling Hillary Clinton regularly, in fact starting them off and ending them with that kind of thing, threatening to destroy her career. She lost a whole bunch of advertisers and things of that nature. It was just an absolute Shiite Muslim storm, if you pardon the French. And I found out that in this movement, as you probably well know, Kevin, there are people who are completely unhinged. And there are people who masquerade as having a moral fibre that simply does not exist. and you cannot expose these people, for they are capable of manipulating their audiences so well that they would never believe you, even if you told them the truth.
Well, I think a lot of these people don't have terribly big audiences, and it sort of makes you wonder, where they're coming from. I've sensed a pattern since I've been in the truth movement, which is that these crazy people show up and start stalking you, and they often will go and stalk like targets who seem to be the very people that the powers that be would want stopped at that moment, like somebody who's picking up steam in something. And I've seen this pattern repeat itself over and over. And I wonder if some of these people aren't agents of the state in some sense. One guy out in the Bay Area apparently lives just about right next door to Stanford University, where a lot of CIA hypnotism was going on back in the day, and maybe still is. And he's just a classic guy. He's a guy who lived in his parents' basement for his whole life, and suddenly started stalking 9/11 truth leaders with these bizarre, paranoid, accusations of, and then this kind of thing happens over and over and over. So I just wonder if some of these people aren't getting hypnotherapy from MK Ultra.
Well, see, and again, as we referred to back earlier about proving conspiracies, like in court, if you've got that evidence, that kind of thing, I think it matters not what the intention is. You just simply need to judge the tree by the fruit that falls from it. If what falls from the tree is nothing but rotten, disease-carrying spawn of Satan, stop listening to the person. It matters not whether or not they're under mind control. It matters not whether they're working for the other side. Because the one thing you can prove is they're a douchebag and they're lying.
There you go. Well, I think one of the things I really like about what you do on the radio is it sets the standard for avoiding, paranoia and negativity. And that's the sense that I meant when I said that you're better than Alex Jones. I'm not saying that, you're necessarily a more brilliant ranter, although you're pretty darn good. But, Alex, for all of his genius in so many ways, and he is a genius, let's face it, and he's, really he's the king of the genuinely alternative media, but he does veer off into a sort of a negative vibe a bit more than he really needs to, it seems to me. You could get kind of depressed and paranoid listening to him 3 hours a day. Obviously, it didn't stop you from doing what you do. But
well, you know why,
really
Kevin?
Keeping that sense of humor.
Well, the reason why I'm able to keep doing what I'm doing is I've stopped listening to Alex Jones. You
were probably going to go crazy if you kept listening to him, so you had to start your own show, huh?
I was crazy while I was listening to him. You should have seen me yelling and screaming and abusing people, calling them slave scum, and telling them, seriously. I remember, what was I? I was thinking I was having a conversation with my sister Janine on the phone, and I was complaining about money because I quit my job because I hated all of that kind of BS, and I wanted to do something right by the world. And she's saying go get a personal loan or go to the government and get a handout and all of this kind of stuff. And I just started screaming at her, calling her slave scum, and it just occurred to me, oh my God, this information is actually really, really damaging. And I think that might have been one of the key moments when I realized that, hey, you've really got to find these an intellectual coping mechanism or an emotional coping mechanism, something to do with. I mean, Jack Blood, for example, he drinks, and he doesn't go completely out of control. He just drinks to keep the stress off, and he's admitted as much on my radio show. I was really dependent on marijuana at the time, and then I started to realize, oh my God, this is actually making me really slow. It's making me lazy. I can't do quite as much as when I'm sober. So I've got to find some other kind of coping mechanism that doesn't slow me down. And then I pinpointed on humor and the lighter side of genocide, and it seems to offend people. Often, even loyal listeners to the show, when they first hear that phrase, the lighter side of genocide, they actually get offended by it.
I can't imagine why that would be.
Well, see, and it occurs to me that even if there isn't a lighter side to genocide, you'd better invent one and do so quick smart, because the reality of how horrific it is will be the thing that will destroy you and stop you from preventing genocide.
Right, right. I still remember one of my favorite comic strips when I was a teenager was Children's Letters to the Gestapo by Michael O'Donoghue. It was in the National Lampoon. And that kind of warped my mind, I think. It was one of those formative experiences. Yeah.
I would like to see Children's Letters to the Gestapo. I've never heard of that.
Oh, it's great stuff. Great stuff. Yeah. And this kind of dark humor, which I discovered in the National Lampoon as a teenager, then sort of led me through twists and turns to study dark humor in literature, the absurdists, like Ionesco with his play Rhinoceros, where one guy sees that there's this rhinoceros knocking things over in the cafe, and all these other people are just sitting in the cafe, sipping their coffee. And what are you talking about? What rhinoceros? And it, that kind of stayed with me. And when 9/11 happened, I realized that there's something kind of humorous about this. It's just so over the top and so obvious, and all of these sheeple are walking around like, what rhinoceros?
Well, and again, that's what made me angry and started getting me motivated in the first place. And Alex Jones, to his credit, he makes people angry, and when they become angry, they get motivated. Some people, on the other hand, they don't get angry as he is and go out and do something. They become paranoid and depressed, which prevents you from going out and doing things. And
they get an email flame wars.
Pardon?
They get an email flame wars. They express their anger on the internet pointlessly.
This is true. Trolling. What was her name? Cyndi Lauper. Trolls just wanna have fun. And they do. They'll cluster around. And this is what I don't get. I was on having an argument with somebody, right? And they called me a communist. Me, a communist. Oh, no. Actually, they call me a capitalist. Sorry, it's the same thing as far as I'm concerned. There's no real difference, because the people who created capitalism and the people who created communism now control both factions anyway. So it's irrelevant. So I had somebody who was a communist and admitted Marxist telling me that I'm a capitalist and I'm a bad person when I never mentioned capitalism or anything. All I was doing was videos of the Monsanto March of everybody else doing their speeches at the Monsanto March, including people from the Communist Green Party and and other activists who've taken personal responsibility and had even travelled over from the United States to do so. And then he has the audacity to accuse me of thinking a certain way or doing a certain thing when he doesn't fracking know. He doesn't have a fracking clue, and he keeps pumping out all these logical fallacies. So he starts calling me names, starts lying, starts doing all of these other things. And I point out to him, look, that's a lie, that's a lie, that's a lie, that's a lie. And all you're doing is putting out all these logical fallacies. And he says, yeah, but it's okay to do that in a conversation. So what you're telling me is that it's okay to BS people and lie and manipulate. Is that what you're telling me? And then you're telling me that I'm the one with the problem? That I'm the one who's shilling out bad information? You fracking scumbag? And I said, look, I'm uploading 15 videos related to this Monsanto protest that I filmed in one day. 15 videos, one day. And he accuses me that I'm not changing anything of note. I'm not challenging the system. Okay? He's uploaded nothing. He has done nothing. All he's doing is arguing with me and trying to tell me that I shouldn't be doing what I'm doing. That I should be more like him and do nothing. And I said to him, look, here's the YouTube channel. If you want to continue to argue with me and accuse me of whatever else, you can go to these YouTube channels. I can guarantee you there's over 2,000 videos in there. There's something that will correct you on this. I've got more important things to do than argue with you. All right? And I'm gone. And I blocked him on Facebook, and I haven't heard anything from him since. And then one of my listeners said, hey, Vinny, he's accusing you of losing the argument and leaving before it was over. So It's just like, what argument? All he was doing was calling me names and lying. That's not an argument. An argument is when there's two people talking and two people listening and some kind of conclusion being brought to. Not one person calling the other person names and the other one saying, no, bro, you're lying. That's not an argument. That's an abuse of competition. And I'm not playing that.
Situation I've seen, we have the same thing going in Madison. There's some left-wing people like that who they're so totally in their little narrow focus of their Trotskyite or Stalinist or whatever ideology that they insist, that anybody who's saying anything a little bit different has got to be wrong, and they can't figure out why, so they just start calling you names.
Marx did that too. All the classic economists of his day were saying your system is utopian and it won't work and so on and so forth. And because he couldn't back up his argument, he just says you're part of the bourgeoisie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Marx and Freud both did that. And with Freud, if you doubt anything about what he says, it's because you've got some kind of unconscious neurotic complex. Something happened to you when you were a child. It was one of your unconscious fantasies, and that's why you don't believe what I say.
No, I don't believe what you say because you're full of crap and all evidence points to it.
See, your fixation on feces obviously stems from early toilet training, Vinny.
No, actually, see, what it does is it occurs here right on the article that says psychiatry now officially insane.
I love it. And right below that, can hemp cure DNA?
Yeah.
That's interesting. What publication is this?
This is the New Zealand Journal of Natural Medicine. They're published and edited by the same people who do Uncensored magazine. You can see this at naturalmedicine.net.nz. And this one here at uncensored.co.nz. And besides myself, in terms of alternative media contributions for this country, these are the two publications that I say to people to go to because they've really supported me. The reason why I had audio equipment, like proper audio equipment, is actually because of the editors of those magazines, and the reason why the editors of those magazines now have videos on YouTube of them talking about everything from vaccines to 9/11 was an inside job and smart meters and so on and so forth is because of me. And I think that's what we should really be doing in the alternative media, both in New Zealand and around the world, is if you have other people within your various scopes, if you are capable of giving them promo or help so that they can continue their very important work. And I believe that these people doing these magazines is actually, they put a lot more work into it than I do. They work on deadlines. They've got 100-page publications that come out every third month each, so it's a hell of a lot of work that goes into it, and I talk to them. They're having sleepless nights and things like that. Man, they're working far harder than I am, and I really applaud and acknowledge the work that they're doing, and all the meetings and things that they put on for launch parties and what have you. And I just want to support them, not because I'm getting any kind of reward or benefit out of it, but because they're just doing the right thing. And in my opinion, if you want to make the world a better place, you stop supporting the people who are doing the bad things to you.
Makes sense to me. Well, there's such a beautiful niche available for this alternative media stuff. Because if it's all lies, if whole piles of magazines at the magazine stand are all lies, and most of the airwave spectrum is all lies, then if you go out there and, hit them with some hardcore truth, even, zap it a little bit, jazz it up, make it a little more intense and overstated, a little hyperbole won't hurt, so put that out there. And the contrast between that and all this pablum, I think, is guaranteed to make a splash and to get some interest up, and the media is shifting towards the internet, and the truth movement owns the internet. So we're making this slow progress, and of course it's not as fast as it should be, because I think not as many people today are engaged with these kinds of political ideas maybe as at certain points in the past. A lot of folks have kind of retreated into their personal lives. As we were talking about earlier, they've gotten cynical, withdrawn, or they're just very busy just trying to stay alive. Hey, Vinny, you still there?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I just had my screen just went blank. But in any case, the starting a magazine like that is a wonderful project. I would like to see more of that. We've had a few good alternative magazines and papers start up here in the U.S., but generally there's not a whole lot of truth available on dead trees.
Uh, this is true, and I think that was the reason Jonathan Eisen started the magazine, is because you always see this stuff in on the internet and all these articles and things like that, but you don't have it in hard copy. It's one of those. What would you call it? You know how on the New York Times bestseller list they have these things which are called a great book to have on your coffee table. Implying that people don't read them, yet they just have them on display because it makes them look sophisticated.
Yeah. Stephen Hawking's Brief History of Time was the classic. Somebody put a bunch of $20 bills in those books and check, with a little postcard to send it to us if you find it, and nobody ever did because nobody ever read the book. It's a true social science experiment.
Yeah, and I think this is the problem with people these days, is they're obsessed with appearances and they've forgotten about substance.
Absolutely, and I think part of the reason though that it's good to break into the dead trees, put some truth on the dead trees, is that
I'd rather put it on dead marijuana plants rather.
That would be even better. Yeah, that's higher quality stuff. But right now, see, the people in charge of the Federal Reserve have made it impossible to put it on dead marijuana plants. And they've got these massive pulp mills that suck up the forests and turn them into pulp. And the pulp goes through their factories and it gets thrown into 3 pipelines. It gets squirted out 3 pipelines. One of the pulp pipelines gets stamped into dollar bills. One of them gets stamped into magazines and newspapers and books, and the other pipeline gets stamped into toilet paper.
It sounds like a really bad Dr. Seuss story.
Toilet paper. Right, and it's all the same stuff. It's all the same pulp coming down the same tube.
So, one's meant for your ass. One's meant to turn your head into an ass, and the other one's meant to control your economy.
Right, and as Sigmund Freud would say, that's even connected to the other ones. So, yeah, I think that we need to turn some of our forests into truth instead of having them nothing but lies, hygienic paper, and green pieces of worthless crap that people are willing to trade goods and services for.
Now, I'm also conscious of the fact that they're trying to break into the United States now with Uncensored and the New Zealand Journal of Natural Medicine as we speak. And Jonathan's very concerned that it may never get in there because it's just really, really controversial, and there's so many different things in there. Like they cover everything. Not just 9/11 truth and the JFK assassination, but they also go into whacked out things like alien civilizations on Mars and all of this kind of stuff. And a lot of people are very purist in the way that they talk about the quote unquote truth movement or whatever, whereas I'm not. So that kind of magazine doesn't offend me in any of the articles, because you see articles in there on the drug war, about 9/11, about JFK, and then there's UFO stuff and out of body experiences, or an article on LSD or something of that nature. For me, it's all the same kettle of fish, because it ain't being mentioned on mainstream media anyway, and regardless of whether or not it's 100% uber true, uber factual, people are always saying, oh, this discredits this movement or that movement, and I'm not sure where I stand on that perspective as yet, because I haven't had my credibility threatened by somebody else talking about stuff that I didn't say.
Right. Well, I've had issues with this before. When I was starting out with the truth movement, people were harassing me about, why did you bring this person on the show? This will discredit you. They're not a certified scientific truther. They're talking about a topic that's off limits, like ETs or like this or that or the other. I think I got kicked off of 9/11 Blogger, Vinny. I don't know if you heard this story, because I had John Lear on my show. Now, John Lear is I think the son of the inventor of the Learjet. He's probably the most qualified pilot on Earth. He's got top ratings in dozens or hundreds of different kinds of airplanes. He admitted on my show that he used to run contraband for the CIA and was involved in flying during Iran-Contra. This John Lear is a very interesting guy. And he's also a 9/11 truther, knows it was an inside job. So I have him on my show just to hear what he's going to say. And then, like, halfway through the show, he starts saying stuff like, oh, you know that there are alien, bases on the back of the moon, don't you? And things like, oh, no, I didn't know that, John. So it's a kind of an amusing interview. But the 9/11 blogger people had no sense of humor about it whatsoever. And they kicked me off and destroyed all of my work for like 3 or 4 years. Everything I posted on the internet was all at 9/11 Blogger. So they just erased it all. It all disappeared. This was the day before I was declaring running for Congress. So I was getting a little paranoid there about, what are their true motives. But it just, maybe they're just, uptight, anal weirdos. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I see that happening quite a lot, man. It's just... I think you hit the nail on the head when you said they just don't have any sense of humor about it.
There you go. Well, see, that's why they need to listen to your show more often.
Well, I believe that everybody should listen to my show. Everybody should listen to my show. Not because it's the best show on the internet or anything, but mostly because it's one of the very few, if to my knowledge, pretty much the only show that talks about these types of strange truth topics in a spectrum, judging from what Alex Jones talks about with the end the Fed and the vaccines and all of that kind of stuff, all the way to the George Norrie spectrum with time travel and so on and so forth. So we encapsulate all those subjects, but the thing that I do that I don't see anybody else doing is really trying to make people laugh and try to maintain their sense of humour about all of these things. And what does this remind me of? What happened to you with 9/11 Blogger happened to me with Occupy Auckland. Okay? You know who made the most videos for Occupy Auckland out of anybody? Me. Okay? They had an entire media team of like 9 people, and they produced less content than I did for them by myself. And then I asked for donations, as I do. They made me an admin on their page, and I asked for donations once, and then they kicked me off their page because I asked for donations.
Wow. Well, good riddance, I guess. I mean, if you're doing the majority of the productive work, I mean, who needs them?
Yeah. And I remember the very first conversation I had with them. I wish I still had that text message, just from this guy named Red Star 309s, one of the Occupy protesters down here, and he said to me, "Vinny, are you coming down? This is it. This is the it's like, oh yeah, Occupy's going to change the entire world." Now, me being a veteran protester, I just had to laugh at him and just go, you think a protest, any protest, no matter how long it takes, no matter what you're doing, is going to really change anything? You must be joking yourself, okay? I have never, ever been to a protest that changed anything. I've been to hundreds. They don't change anything. It is what you do before the protest and what you do after the protest and every single day after them until you accomplish your goal that actually does something. Protests are simply a showing of force so that you can actually hang out with other people of like minds and use your socializing ability to accomplish more things outside of the protesting environment, which accomplishes nothing. And I don't think this guy got it. And he got angry at me for saying that I wouldn't put aside my show, my 5-day-a-week, 2 hours a day show with thousands upon thousands of listeners to come down and just sit at Occupy talking to people. And he got angry and said that I didn't care. It's going to be
your fault if the world doesn't change.
Yeah. See, and it's just... If you're a veteran, like I am, not of wars or anything, but you do gain this kind of, I wouldn't say apathy or cynicism. You gain a realistic perspective and patience. I've spoken to, say, G. Edward Griffin, for example. And
I just had him on the show last week.
You got to love him, mate. And he's... been in the movement for good 60 years now, ever since the 60s, talking about the Carol Quigley and all of these other sorts of things. And his perspective is, you may not think that you're accomplishing a whole lot, and you may not get everything you want to accomplish done, but the thing is, you're actually accomplishing a lot more than you think.
Well, he certainly has. His work for a while was just like a tiny little lighthouse beacon in this huge ocean of chaos and protest this and protest that. And, over the years, people have slowly been waking up to the fact that he's onto something.
Hey, and see, that's where the patience comes in. I think a lot of protesters are suffering from the impetulance of youth.
Mm-hmm.
And as a 28-year-old man, I know what I'm talking about. You want everything. You want everything
You're
to
a babe
happen.
in the woods.
You want everything to happen here and now, and I want that accomplished and that accomplished and whatever. And it's like, dude, you're talking about changing the world. You can't change the world, okay? You can change yourself, and you can have an effect on the world, but you can't control it and change it like the New World Order can. They can bribe politicians or threaten to kill them if they don't pass certain legislation, and then boom, create a change in the way the United States runs, just like that. But the rest of us, on the other hand, it takes an enormous effort over a very long period of time before we can even really see any results of any kind that we want to see. And so, and if we keep saying, oh, I'm going to accomplish this, I'm going to accomplish that, and we expect it to happen just by fracking osmosis, you're going to get depressed because you're not accomplishing as much as you thought you were going to, and then you're going to not only bow out of the movement, you're going to join the other side. Because you'll start to think like a lot of these people do. See, people won't listen. See, you can't accomplish it. So what the hell is the point? Let's just call people sheeple and refer to them as slave scum and advocate that 90% of them should be exterminated and so on and so forth. These are just depressed people who were getting too far ahead of themselves. And when you know what happens when you get too far ahead of yourself? You become too frickin' full of yourself. And people that are too full of themselves, to hell with them.
That very, very well put. So, hey, Vinny, I have a friend here who is very interested in the ET, paranormal, UFO, remote viewing kind of stuff. And wonder, what is your take on that? You were mentioning that, that's the fringe stuff that we're not really supposed to talk about, or all the anal retentive people will get mad at us. But see, my take is that there's something going on with the UFOs. There's a cover up of something.
There can't not be something going on. All right. Everything that I see, well, basically, here's how you tell whether or not there's something to a discussion. Are the people who come out with that discussion being called names? Yeah, they're being called UFO nuts. Then there must be something to it.
Yeah, that pretty well does solve it, doesn't it? There's something to it, but still, I can't figure out what in the world it is. There's some people who say evil aliens are kidnapping humans and doing genetic modification on them so they can take over the world with hybrids. That's the paranoid vision. Then there's other people who say, no, the ETs are benevolent space brothers who are here to help us. That's the exact opposite. And maybe the truth is somewhere in between.
Well, the truth in most cases is grey. Very rarely is it black and white, unless you're talking about Freemasonry. And incidentally, with the tiled floors.
The truth is the greys.
Yeah. Oh, hey, no, that'd be a great T-shirt, don't you think? The truth in most thing is greys.
There you go. Let's blame the greys for everything.
Yeah. And so there's elements of truth to a lot of things, and again, as we were talking about, say, JFK, you can't take somebody into court and prove 100% whether or not they were the person, because all the witnesses have been killed and so on and so forth. I've seen a number of videos with UFOs on them that look pretty fracking convincing, and those videos are not manufactured. They've been verified. They are genuine. What does UFO mean? Unidentified flying object. Does it say unidentified flying object with aliens inside it? Are there human pilots? How many classified aircraft has the United States and maybe even other governments around the world been working on and test flying? And then when people look up and see that thing, they go, oh my God, it's a UFO. It must be aliens. See, there's an element of that to it as well. And let's say, what was his name? Lloyd Pye, the Star Child skull. You ever heard of this, Kevin?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I met him. I stayed in a rooming house with him in London for a few days.
Yeah, a cool guy, and he used to be a an agent for the U.S. government, and now he's cruising around with a Star Child skull, and the weird fibers in it, and the strange genetic material of it. It is not human. Okay, it's half human, half something else. And they've got the DNA test results to prove this now. So there is absolute proof that there is unidentified flying objects. There is absolute proof that there is non-human DNA on planet Earth, non-terrestrial DNA that we can't approve its location for. So it's not too many stretches of the imagination to imagine via logic that there are other species out there. More to the point, there's so many goodness how many billions of habitable planets in the universe, and goodness knows how long the universe has been along for. Maybe there's other races out there who've been technologically advanced for 1,000,000+ years longer than ours, who are capable of faster than light travel or time travel or instantaneous teleportation or things like that. It's the big unknown unknowns, which all it does really is open up the realm of possibility. Where I get really frustrated is when people are absolutely 100% sure of things that are simply possibilities that they cannot prove in court. That's when people start to get a little bit paranoid. That's when people start to go a little bit crazy. I'm not saying that people who believe that absolutely in UFOs and aliens are real. That's fine. But I'll just tell you the perspective of my bandmate, Mikhail. He learned about...
You have some stuff. We have like about a minute left, so give us the short version.
Okay, it was a short version anyway. He was sitting in the car. He'd only just learned about reptilians, and he's freaking out about it. And he's like, "Oh my God, Vinny, there's reptilians and stuff." And I say, "Well, let's say there are reptilians. Have you ever seen one? No. One ever tried to kill you? No. Then what the frack are you afraid of?" You're sitting there, you're being afraid of something you've never seen and has never done anything to you. That's what your thoughts can do to you. So be careful, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Vinny Eastwood from thevinnieeastwoodshow.com. That's Vinny with a Y, because it's the most important question. And Eastwood as in, go ahead, make my news.
All right. Well, thank you for making news for us here on the Kevin Barrett Show. Vinny and I are colleagues over at American Freedom Radio. Shout out for AFR. And here we are at No Lies Radio, signing off until next time. Thank you so much, Vinny. It's been great.
Pleasure as always, Kev.
All right. Bye-bye.
See ya.
In a world chock full of conspiracy and comedy, don't get paranoid or you'll go fucking... Ah!
You violated the FCC regulations
Alan's
too.
gonna have to go back and bleep that out. All right. See you, Vinny. Bye-bye.
Hello everybody, today I have a very special review for you. First of all, just let me say that this is such a great product. It has helped me tremendously so far. I made the right decision. The best part is that you can reference and ask questions at any time to use this. Order today with confidence, and if you put this information to test for 60 days and you don't see results, and if you feel that this product does not help you, you will receive 100% of your money back. So that basically means that there is nothing to lose. Before purchasing it, I searched to find a discount and I found a huge discount. If you like to get the same discount, just visit the link below. Thanks for watching and have a nice day.